is how can real estate agents and real estate professionals survive or even thrive during a recession or during a real estate downturn? I think that this is probably on a lot of people's minds. If you read headlines and you pay attention to the news, and if you happen to be in real estate, these are probably questions that you might have pondered or wondered about. So let's get into this topic. Let's try and thoroughly answer this question. I think there's a handful of things that people could do, right? Like, first off, I'm a firm believer that you probably have to examine your expenses and cut back on your expenses. However, I think in real estate, a lot of times we cut business expenses before we cut our lifestyle expenses, because your business is your income and that fuels your lifestyle. And the tendency when business goes down or when we're concerned about a real estate downturn, right, is probably one of the first things people go after is like marketing expenses and all your business expenses. You're like, I'm going to cut that. I'm going to cut that. I'm going to cut that. And all you're doing is like further making it your ability to earn more income. And you're actually cutting it. You're cutting your legs off, right? And you really have to first, and this is hard. This is really hard for all of us. We actually have to examine our lifestyle expenses first and say, where do I make cuts? Because your lifestyle, right? If your business fuels your lifestyle, and if you're cutting your business, then you're going to eventually have to compromise your lifestyle.
But if you do it the opposite way, then you don't cut your revenue or expenses on your business. Now, Chris, I've been in real estate for 26 years. You've been in it for 24, I think. And we've both been through two downturns, major downturns to this point.
Yeah.
This is our third. What I can share with you is what I learned in the very first downturn, and then I really emphasized in the second downturn, is I understood what my competition was going to do. So understanding that your competition is going to do exactly what we're talking about. They're going to cut their business marketing expenses because they correlate it directly to putting food on the table. So if they are doing that, what they're doing is they're cutting off a section of the pie in real estate that they had ownership in. They're cutting that off.
Their market share. Essentially, it's their market share.
Their market share is going to shrink.
They're relinquishing back to the market.
They are.
That's good news for you.
They are shrinking their own market share. And so what's going to happen? I need to go gobble that up. And so it's actually counterintuitive, is that what we should be doing is doubling down on marketing. What we should be doing is really focusing on the marketing efforts that work right now. Don't cut that off. Increase, or at least keep it the same, because here's what's going to happen. This market is not going to last forever.
Right.
I think we all get into this fatalistic attitude that, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, Chicken Little, the sky is falling. This is the way it's going to be forever. No. These downturns don't last for more than a year, 2 years, 3 years. They don't last.
Yeah, and I would say the current in real estate, we're already a year in this, right? Like, really, if you think about what's been going on in real estate since roughly, was it April or May of 2022, it's been a steady decline. So even though the headlines of the news are now just reporting on all this other stuff, right? Inflation and banks problems and stuff like that. The fact is, in real estate, we're actually seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Now's not the time to be cutting your business expenses. Right?
Well, here's what happens, Chris. You cut your business expenses now. 6, 9, 12 months in the future, you got no business. And so instead, keep your investments the same level, or if you have the fortitude, to increase your investment into your marketing, so that when the market recovers, you're ahead of the game. You've already beat everybody else out of the market. You've already captured their market share, so that you're poised to win. That is how you compete during a market downturn.
I think, Garry, to say cut lifestyle is a hard one to do, right? Like, because it's really it is actually a lot easier, sort of mentally or psychologically, to say, you know what, I'm going to stop, sending postcards to my farm. It's a few $100 a month. I'm just going to stop doing that. It's easier to say that than, you know what, I've been driving that Mercedes and maybe I need to drive a Camry right now. right? Like it's far easier to cut the business expense than to adjust lifestyle. It's far
Right.
easier to say, you know what, I'm gonna stop doing that those YouTube ads or the Facebook ads or the
Then
whatever the
I'm
pay.
not. Then I'm not going to take the family to Hawaii.
Right. It's like I couldn't. I got to go on the vacation, right? So I think that it's a hard one to do. It's a really hard one to do because I think in many ways ego is a lot more involved with lifestyle, right? Lifestyle affects ego. It's our how we project to our friends, our family, and the community, and all the people around us. And
Chris, there's some really easy ways to cut this, right?
what are things we could do? What are you doing?
Oh my goodness. Number one, cut your Starbucks habit. Number two,
Mm,
cut down on Uber Eats and what are the other food delivery?
Dash door, all those
Grubhub.
good ones.
Cut down on that. Start going to the grocery store and cooking at home. You would
Yeah.
be shocked at how much money that's going to save you.
So
So cut down on these expenses.
we started doing that, Gary, where I'd gotten used, because I got 4 kids and my wife and I, we got a busy household. We got a lot of stuff going on. The kids are all still in school age. So there's always sports and this and that and the other going on and instruments to be played. So we had gotten used to having our groceries delivered to us because there's a really nice service through the grocery store chain that we're in Texas. So we have this chain called HEB. We love it. And they have this great delivery service. What you don't realize is it's like $10 for the delivery. What you don't realize is a 3% markup on every single thing that you're buying.
That's
So
right. Every single thing that you're buying is marked up. So you don't actually see it because all you see is, okay, there's a
$10.
tiny
It's only
delivery fee.
$10. Yeah.
No. They mark up every single item and you're paying for that, whether you think you are or not.
Yeah. And I think another one, we have a tendency, we like to go to, on a Sunday, we go to church and we go to brunch. Well, brunch for 6 of us is even at an inexpensive place is not inexpensive. And so instead of doing brunch, we're just getting coffee and donuts now, right? It's a lot less expensive. And the thing is, it's still the family time that we were looking for. It's
The
just
thing
spending
is,
less money.
Chris, I think these are all small expenses in our mind. And we're like, oh, it's just this, it's just that. They all add up. And every single time you add it up, if you sit down and you actually look at how much you're spending on conveniences, on luxuries every single month, think about if you shifted that budget from your household to your business, what that could actually mean to your household in the future. It's not just the savings, it's the compounding and the investment that you're making into your business now that is going to pay off 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18, 24 months in the future that you're going to reap the benefits. So it's like going to the gym now, understanding you're not going to get the gains. You're not going to get huge right now.
It takes time.
It takes time.
What people don't realize is did you know the average delivery for a postcard, for a marketing postcard that you would have delivered to your farm is $1 to have it printed and delivered.
Right.
And so, let's say we were going to brunch. Brunch for the 6 of us was about $125. Going to Dunkin' Donuts and getting a coffee and some donuts is like $25. So I'm saving $100 a week. That's $400 a month. That's 400 postcards.
400
postcards. 400 postcards that I could have mailed. And so, I think that little shift in thinking is, you're right, because we look at it's just a coffee. It's $3. It's just brunch, whatever. But you start to translate, well, how many postcards could I send out? How many flyers could I send out? How many of these things could I do? How many of these leads can I get? And all of a sudden,
and it's not just the month, Chris. It's the year.
Yeah.
So that $400 that you save every month and invest into real estate, that's 4,800 contacts every year.
Wow.
Touch points.
We usually, to be honest, I never even really thought about that until we started making those cuts ourselves, realizing, oh, wow, this actually affords us so much more runway with our marketing. This allows us to go after getting so much market share when everyone else is fearful and pulling back. What was it? Warren Buffett, who had the saying that, when people are fearful that when people are greedy, you should be fearful. And when people are fearful, you should be greedy. And that really is true because it's a contrarian approach because most people fall into their patterns. And so that's, an easy way is for us to start focusing on reducing lifestyle expenses and really either maintain or increase the investments that we're making in our real estate business. I think,
if you have the ability, reinvest the savings from your lifestyle into your business. You're going to experience an enormous growth over the next 6, 12, 18 months where other people are contracting, and you're going to take their piece of the pie. You're going to take their market share, and you're going to win in the end.
Yeah, I think another thing we need to do is you can't leave anything on the table in terms of opportunity, whether it's listings, whether it's leads. Like you can't lose a single deal right now.
So this is so interesting, Chris. You remember, back in 2012, 2013, 14, man, we were going to gangbusters. I was going on 6 listing appointments every single week.
Mm-hmm.
I had the gap. I had the opportunity to let several of those listings go if I didn't want to deal with the sellers.
Right.
Because I had an abundance of opportunities. I didn't need them all.
Mm-hmm. Especially if the ones were headaches to work with.
Yeah. The headaches I didn't want to deal with. Now, every single listing opportunity is very, very scarce. And so for me to allow them to slip out the door is extremely dangerous for my business, because on average, right now, a real estate agent in the United States is selling fewer than 12 homes a year. So to allow one of those out the door is 1/12 of your revenue, your income to your household for the year. Let that sink in. That is dangerous to let that go. So, Chris,
well, Garry, here's the thing.
We cannot let these opportunities go. So how do we make sure that we secure them?
And the numbers are even worse than that. So that the average person doing 12 deals was off of roughly 6 million existing home sales taking place like they did in the last couple of years. We're looking at about 4 million homes selling. So the average,
it's going to be fewer than this. You're talking maybe
seven or eight deals is what the average person will do. And you lose one of those, 1/8 of your income, 1/7 of your income is gone because you just lost that one deal. So you can't afford to lose a single deal. And actually, you just made me think of something else. You can't afford to lose a single listing because listings are the scarcity right now, right? Like that is the thing that there's nothing of. You could probably, if you have a listing, you could put 2 sticks together and find a buyer right now. You know what I mean? Like, but listings are very scarce. And so in terms of, you can't lose a single listing opportunity. In fact, in a lot of ways, this means that we probably have to go out and do things that maybe we didn't do before, right? So maybe you didn't work expired listings before. Maybe now's the time to do that, right? You can't leave that business on the table. Right. Garry, we were chatting earlier, like, yeah, probably time to start rebooting those open houses because.
And for me right now, I'd be investing heavily into open houses. And it's like, so many people are like, so here's what I find fascinating is in real estate, we're hard workers. Like we will work our tails off, but we're also naysayers. So when I say go do open houses, so many people are like,
there's lots of buts.
I don't have any listings. Like, well, let's figure this out. There are ways to host open houses when you don't have listings. Go to your broker, go to other agents, beg them to host their open houses, show them what's in it for them. And then you host the open house and you reap the benefits. This is the full move in what we call the play. This is a full move. You host an open house, you build identity in a neighborhood, you have your open house signs everywhere with your name and your branding on it. You are meeting people at the open house, you're making offers of help. You do this consistently. All of a sudden, Chris, you are the real estate expert of the neighborhood because you can't not be.
I think things like working expires, things like doing open houses, things like maybe going after physicals. You can't. Oh, by the way, anyone who's not like working their contacts and connections and getting all that sphere of influence, but like you can't ignore any one of these sources because there's just not that many sources these days. When you have fewer listings that are kind of come onto the market as projected, right? I think NAR is projecting roughly around 4 million existing home sales this year. There may be more, there may be less, whatever, but it's going to be less than the previous 2 years, right? And so that means with less listings and less opportunities, you got to go after the few sources that are there. And maybe you haven't done that before, or maybe it's been a while since you've had to do it. That's okay. It's okay because you know what? It gives us something to do. It gives us something to focus on. And to your point, Garry, all we got to do, you just focus on the immediate next step. The next step. All right, I get this open house. Instead of focusing on I haven't done open houses in a long time. I don't have a listing. I don't know what to do. Solve that first step of, well, where could you get a listing? Talk to your broker. Somebody in your office has one. right?
Yep.
And talk to them and see what you could do about offering, to host an open house and what you might be able to do in exchange for them. So, I think that turning down what has been proven effective strategies or sources of opportunity, you can't afford to do that right now. But the beauty of it is, let's say you design, you create a system for working expireds. Let's say you create a process for doing your open houses so that when the market picks up, it's actually easier for you to do all of these things. And now you have all these streams of leads, streams of listings, streams of opportunity coming to you, and you work a lot less once the market's in your favor. You
Oh,
work
that's the
a lot
key.
less when the
You know
market's
what? Invest your time, invest your energy, invest your money now, because in the future, you won't have to work as hard. And
yeah.
that's the beauty of the downturn. That's why so many people, everybody is so afraid of this downturn in the market. I'm excited about it. I'm
Well, it
excited
forces.
because it allows me the opportunity to shine.
Mhm. You know what I love about it is it forces us. And I know if you were to ask anybody, do you want to grow? Do you want to get better? Everyone always says yes. But the process of doing it is doing hard stuff. And when you're in a downturn, you're actually forced to do the hard stuff, like improve your skills, improve your knowledge, improve your real estate systems, right? Improve your processes so you can serve more clients and do so in a 5-star experience. Improve your lead generation, your branding, and your reputation in the marketplace. And when the winds are going against you, it is hard, but you work at it one step at a time. And then eventually, because it's a season, then the winds are in your favor. They're actually behind your back.
The
And then
winds will shift.
you are flying because you have those systems in place. You got those processes in place.
And everybody else is drowning.
And that's exactly why people say, yeah, you survive and thrive through that downturn. And the
Yep.
people who come out on top are the ones who they stay the course. They stay the course. They don't get it. They don't get distracted by the headlines. They don't get distracted by the news and the next falling sky situations. Like, hey, I got my plan and I'm working it. I've got my plan. I'm working it. I'm going to stay the course because we all know, especially anyone who's been around in real estate for a while, these seasons come and they go. In
Yep.
fact, every year there's a little bit of seasonality in real estate, right? Like every year there's a little bit of seasonality in real estate. And
Chris, this is why I thrive in the winter. Most real estate agents tell their clients, we're not going to list your house in the winter. I'm going to take some time
it's going
off.
to be
You're gonna take-
slow.
Let's
It's a
wait until
holiday.
March. That's when I double down. I work winters hard and I take market share. And in fact, every winter that I work hard, I outperform in 3 months. The rest of the 9 months of my year, I secure more sales in 3 months than I do the rest of the 9 months because everybody else buries their head in the sand. They go on vacation. They tell their clients it's not the right time to sell. I jump in and I said, it is absolutely the right time to sell. And we win the business. This downturn in the marketplace is no different than the winter. It's like that show is like, winter is coming. I'm like, yay, I love it because this is when I take market share.
Well, and the fact is, like in real estate, typically it's about a 3-month cycle. Every year there's about a 3-month cycle where it's a little bit slower. Well, usually a downturn is not going to be that much longer. It's like you're just adding it up a little bit. You're going to have to stay the course a little bit longer, but good things happen. In fact, I think, a third point about being able to thrive through or, not just survive, but thrive into going out of a recession is that forces innovation. What is it? The necessity is the mother of invention, or the quote, something like that. And so, in order for us to be able to manage through any kind of real estate downturn, you have to innovate and you got to be proactive about it. Like you got to try stuff and you have to be willing to fail your way forward because fact is, a lot of things aren't going to work. That doesn't mean you don't try. That doesn't mean you don't keep going after it. I feel like innovation. So where would you innovate in real estate? Where would you innovate during this time? Innovate your marketing. All right. That's something you can do. That's an easy thing to do to figure out, like, what's going to work. Maybe now's the time. If you haven't done, for example, any video kind of marketing, video marketing is the best kind of, I believe, one of the best ways that you can start doing marketing real estate. You know why? Because people might forget a name, but they never forget a face. And video is your face providing value to people if you're doing the right kinds of video, right?
Well, plus, Chris, if people have never worked with us in the past, what's the best way to learn how it is to work with us? Through video. Right. You build trust through video. Trust is the number one key in real estate. And so to say video is important, I think is a gross
Understatement of it.
Understatement of that. It's like it is a requirement if you want to thrive in this business now and moving forward. So get good at video.
Yeah, I think
just get on video. I mean,
just do it. Just get on video, share tips in real estate, talk about what's going on in your market, share updates, share tips, give people advice. The funny thing is, like I said, people will forget a name, but they'll never forget a face. You might have past clients or people who knew you before, and they're like, that's Garry. Garry. Gary's a good guy. In fact, he's got some good tips for me. So, I mean, maybe it's not video for you. Maybe it's something else. Maybe you need to work on, for example, getting more client reviews, right? Because, ratings and reviews are, especially if you're into like SEO and local SEO, having really good reviews online is important for you. But maybe you don't have any today. Well, now's a good time to start, right? And you don't even have to do it right now. You can go back to past clients. Hey, just, I'm working on my real estate business right now. I'm looking to get some reviews on my site. Would you mind taking a moment? Really help me out. Be honored if you would just take a moment to leave me a review on Google or wherever you're storing up your reviews. Or it may be another part. Maybe it's like in your innovation of your processes on how you serve customers, right? Like Garry, I know like during the immediately or during or after the Great Recession, that's when you started coming up with, well, let me examine my listing process, and you came up with an effective listing process, and you looked at your buyer tour and you developed, and that was at the time when you were like, hey, iPad is new, apps are new. How do I put all this together and innovate into something so I can produce superior experiences to my customers? And I think that's, or maybe it's going back to what we talked about before. Maybe you're going to innovate on your open house strategy. Maybe you're going to innovate on your expire listing strategy, but innovate because that's just going to make you better. It's going
and here's a tip for everybody out there looking to innovate. When everybody in your marketplace is doing one thing, do the opposite. Do something different. This is how you stand out. This is how you build trust. This is how you build identity in the marketplace. If everybody in the marketplace is doing one thing, do a lot of things different. That is how you stand out. That is how you can innovate. Don't copy, don't follow, unless they are fundamentals. For example, like one thing I would say, this is, so many people say, get back to basics. I'm like, why the heck did you ever leave them? Right. Don't get back to them. Just don't ever leave them. Like the first one is your contacts and your connections. So many people say, get back to the basics and talk to your contacts and your connections. I say, don't ever stop. Don't ever stop communicating your value to your contacts and your connections. If you have to get back to them, what that means is that something broke down and you've got to fix it. Well, by the way, I've been guilty of this myself.
Especially when there was a hot market, right? Like when we had a hot market not too long ago, right? So when you get that really hot market, just to take care of your customers means you might be cutting some corners. Maybe you're, I can't stay in touch right now. I got too much business right now to deal with anyway, right? Well, this is a great time to get back to those fundamentals, get back to those principles.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think that the biggest area to innovate is to focus on your preparation, is to think about what's going to be needed in my real estate business, my real estate practice, or what are my clients going to need? What's the real estate market going to need? What's my local real estate market going to need in 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now? When you begin to anticipate the future and speculate about the future and try and ground those things, right? But the future is not this. Hey, everything's going to heck in a handbasket, right? Like that's not that. I mean, it feels that way when you read the news, but that's not really true, right? We all know that inherently. So let's think about what's the market going to dictate? Well, you might look at like the current market environment and say, well, the Fed has been raising interest rates. It seems like they've been slowing down, or at least they've been lowering the rate of increase in their
what does that actually mean?
And that means that they're seeing success with what they're trying to accomplish, which is to tame inflation. And so let's say they eventually are successful. They will be eventually successful at taming inflation. That may be 3 months from now. That may be 12 months from now. But that means that at that point in time, interest rates would likely come down. So you want to think about that to say, okay, well, that's good news for me. But that's not really preparing. That's just thinking about how that will be good for you. If you really thought about, well, what marketing do I need for that environment? well, heck, you probably want to have some marketing that's going to address the change in the environment. Let people know here's what's probably going to happen. And then as it happens, it happens. And then you've got your market, you have it all done. I think the more you can anticipate what your clients are going to want to hear from you or what they're actually going to need, and then you want to begin building. It comes to mind, Garry. You lived through the Great Recession. And in real estate, like it was a tough one. Like back in 2008, I mean, I was living in
2007, 2008.
I was living in California at the time, and really we started to feel the beginnings of it at the end of 2006, actually. But of course, it took a while to work itself out. But I remember this. I remember, like most people, by 2009, in 2010, in real estate, the sky was literally falling. But I remember looking around. And I saw, hey, these people are being successful and these people are being successful. What are they doing? Oh, this person's working short sales. No, this person's working REO business. It was too late for most people to go do that because you got to anticipate the future. So if
well, it's called rapid pivot. If you don't pivot rapidly to anticipate what's going to happen in the marketplace and prepare for that, the preparation is key. You touched on that. But if you don't pivot quickly and you just sit on your laurels and you just keep doing what worked in the past, you can't expect that to work now or in the future because the market has shifted.
Yeah.
So you have to innovate. You got to change.
Yeah. So like back then, the people who were already working short sales, the people who were already doing REO business, they thrived during that time. Now
they did. But here's what's interesting, Chris. A lot of the people who got into the REO business stayed in the REO business and even after the market shifted. And you know what happened to them? They died.
Yeah, because they didn't pivot. They didn't anticipate the future. And I think, and actually, just so you, like, I don't know about you, Garry, I don't see short sales and REOs and foreclosures in the future because housing is not the cause of the current situation. So I don't think that's a thing that we need to be preparing for. Actually, what I think we need to do is be preparing for, in the future, an influx.
That's what we're preparing. We are preparing for a very strong recovery of the marketplace once interest rates shift. Interest rates, when they shift, it's going to flood buyers into the marketplace. It's going to bring sellers back into the marketplace because then all of a sudden they realize all these other places I need to move to are now available again.
Because sellers are buyers oftentimes, right? That's what the incentive is, the motivation.
Yeah. So, we need to be preparing for that. And so my question to everybody here watching is, what are you doing right now to prepare for 3, 6, 12 months down the road? That's what you need to be looking at. You don't need to be looking at what's going to get me a deal next week. Because the same practices that are going to get you deals in 12 months are going to get you deals next week. So those are the fundamentals you've got to implement or re-engage if you dropped them off the back of the bus.
Yeah, I think more realistic, the things that we need to be preparing for is, what will eventually be pent-up demand, because the current environment is one that's based on interest rates that have been raised by the Fed. So you might say that's almost like an artificial, like they're imposing a purposeful restriction on the market. Once they remove that restriction, there's pent-up demand happening right now, right? People are like, I was hoping, I wanted to. And actually the pent-up demand is stored even from 2020 and 2021, when there was a lot of people who were getting priced out of the market. So there's that pent-up demand, plus the current pent-up demand. And the fact that there's a shortage in listings right now, all of that means is you're just waiting for the Fed and for the interest rates to come down, because all those people are sitting and waiting. It's not like they're wanting to move any less. You know what I mean? In fact, one might think that their desire to move increases, but they have this restriction right now, interest rates, whatever. And so being able to prepare for that, well, how do you prepare for that? Your marketing's got to be in order. Your ability to service those customers have to be in order, right? And be thinking about it now and preparing for it now instead of later. I think the more you can be ready, not only will it serve you in the future, but it's going to help you with your mindset right now. And I think that's something that probably most people don't talk enough about when it comes to downturns and economic issues is, what is my personal mindset about this. I like to, I refer to it as mental toughness, Garry. And I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, for example, there was a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace, in not just the marketplace, there was uncertainty in the world. You know, what was it, March of 2020 or something like that? And at March and April of 2020. And that uncertainty leads to fear. And I like, what was it, Winston Churchill said, like, weariness makes cowards of us all, or something like that. Here's the thing, it requires resilience to be able to maintain, like, everything that we're talking about. Everyone probably rationally says to themselves, that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh, yeah. Prepare. That makes sense. Innovate. That makes sense. Cut back lifestyle before. All that makes sense. The thing that throws it all out the window is fear. It throws it all out the window because you're too fearful to do any of it. And that comes down to mental toughness. That comes down to resilience. And I think that's something that every one of us has to work on. So one of the things that you can do, stop looking at the news headlines all day long, right? Stop scrolling through social media so much and being influenced by headlines and all these other people who have an agenda, right? Like, maybe pause that and focus on self for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
There's a coach that a program that Garry and I were involved with a while ago. And one of the experts there said, hey, if you want to develop your mental toughness, you actually have to focus on yourself, your mind, and your spirit, right? Like, hey, take the first half hour of your day, instead of getting up and reading the news, is maybe go take a walk and think for a little while, ponder life. Don't start your day off with dopamine hits that you're addicted to. Start your day off with cool, calm reflection. That's one way to develop mental toughness. But I think that if you don't develop your resilience, then that's how so many of us get caught up with the wind blowing in, like the leaves blowing in the wind. Market's going this way, the news is going this way, and we go along with it, instead of focusing on the things that we got to focus on. Because most of us know what we need to do, but our mindset's not right to go do it. And just taking a little bit of time every day to develop that toughness, to develop that peace of mind that you need, just by taking some time for yourself. Maybe that's meditation for you. Maybe that's prayer for you, right? Maybe that's reading a book, taking a walk, and getting some exercise, right? All of those things are ways for us to develop mental toughness so that we have the will and the resilience to go do the things that we need to go do.
So, Chris, we've had a long conversation about what's happening right now in the marketplace, what we see coming. I think we need to give everybody here some insight as to what we see coming, as what we see happening, and how we in our own real estate business are preparing for the future. Because I think so many people we're relying on old data, right? So this old data, we're looking at the sales that happened 60 days ago, the sales that happened 30 days ago. That is such old data, because the sales that happened 30 days ago, did you know they actually went under contract 60 or 90 days before that?
Yeah.
So, like, this
even
is
the Fed is using
old data.
The Fed is using old data, right? When you think about what the Fed does, is it makes its decisions around interest rates based on the data that happened, that it got from the previous month, which in some cases might be a few months old actually by the time they're looking at it. Now, you're always looking in the rear view mirror to see what happened, to try and figure out what you're going to do. So there's always this gap. I think that the way to consider this is to start looking, and I think it's Howard Marks, who's the one of the co-founders of Silver Oak Cake, I don't know, one of the big hedge funds. Anyway, he has this book called the most important thing, and he talks about market cycles, generally market cycles, cycles in the marketplace, and he says you can never predict or know when you're at the bottom or at the top. You only know that in the rear view mirror. You only know when you peaked in the rear view mirror, and you only know when you hit the valley in the rear view mirror. But what you can do is look at how people are thinking and behaving, in the psychology of people. Because what happens is, when a market is really hot and it's close to the peak, people take a lot of risk. They have really high optimism, right? The optimism for the future is like infinite. Right? That's what drives prices up. That's what make people.
That's where inflation comes from. All of it.
I think prior to the Great Recession, in the years leading up to it, they called it irrational exuberance or something like that. Right? Now, contrast. So that's the psychology of the top. The psychology of the bottom, according to Marx, is this: people are fearful, people are selling, people are trying to get out of it, right? The fear takes hold. There's analysis paralysis. Now, here's what I would say: look at the news headlines, look at the people around you. What are you seeing out there? Um, I would say that we're closer to the valley, if not in it, or recently past it, than than anywhere else in that cycle. We're very close, if not already working through that. Now, working through that valley might take 3 months, it takes 6 months. Who knows how long it actually takes? All you can do is like look and assess how are people behaving. And right now, if you follow the news headlines, you can see a lot of people are freaking out about the financial sector, right? That's fear taking hold, literally fear taking hold. I was reading an article this morning, Gary, is saying because it's funny how quickly a market will shift from fear to optimism. Like if you follow the financial markets, it's like one day the Fed comes out and they say one thing and the markets tank, and then the very next day they say, "Oops, well, you know what? We think that the bank is going to be fine." Every sudden the stocks go up. You can't, so you can't really make your decisions based off of all that madness, right? Because it's constantly changing. Instead, what we can do is say, hey, based on what we're reading, and this is how we're making our own bets, by the way. Like we're making our own bets based on, hey, we're either at the valley, close to it, or recently past it. So here's what we can do now. We're looking to the future. We're looking to growth. What we need to do is preserve and create that runway so we can continue to invest in our businesses. And so if you guys have found any of this information useful, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Take a moment to comment, share your insights and thoughts on what we've talked about, and definitely share it with anybody who you could feel could benefit from it. So thanks, and we'll see you soon.